Hello everyone, welcome to yet another session of the daily news analysis by SRIRAM'S IAS, where we take up the important articles from today's newspaper and break them down for our understanding from the examination point of view. So let's start our today's discussion by taking the important articles featuring in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper. So the first article which is important for us is on our screens, and it reads, New Delhi maintains studied silence on Taiwan crisis. Now, most of us would be aware what is happening in Taiwan between China and USA. So what is the event that has happened? So the US House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi gave an impromptu visit to the island of Taiwan, which is near to the coast of China. So if this is China, this is the island of Taiwan. So Nancy Pelosi landed here as a visit, and it was taken as, it was not taken well by the Chinese government, and it took it as an act of hostility, and that is why it has come out as a big event in the world of international affairs. And this is what has now happened in the new set of events, which is in the churning world order. So why is this happened? Why is this the arrival of US House of Representatives Speaker being taken as such a big event? We all know that the Russia-Ukraine war caused a lot of churning in the international world order, and when that happened, the Western powers put a lot of sanctions on Russia. So at that point itself, there were a lot of talks going on that if Russia has invaded Ukraine, China also might do the same with Taiwan soon. And in this aspect, I think 2 weeks ago, in a historic meeting, the chiefs of FBI, which is the intelligence agency of USA, and the chiefs of MI5, which is the intelligence agency of UK, both these presidents in a first time in history came together and said that China is the single biggest threat for them right now, and China is studying the effects of sanctions on Russia, so that what the kind of effects Russia is getting to face due to the levied sanctions, China is analyzing those sanctions so that if it attacks Taiwan or invades Taiwan in the near future, how it can combat with the sanctions. So a lot of intelligence from earlier itself was being gathered, and now we can say that the US itself has played a move by when the Speaker of the House of Representatives in USA has landed in the island of Taiwan. Even though it is said that this was not sanctioned by the US government and it was not in the original itinerary, but still now the move has happened, and which is why China is taking this move as a very hostile move and is promising military action. So what has it done? It has started doing military drills now around Taiwan, right? So and we all know the Chinese Navy is the most powerful navy right now in the world. So it has started to conduct military drills around Taiwan and is continuously warning of strict action that can be taken. So in this aspect now, when these many events are happened, this article now points out as to what India stands, what India's stand is in terms of in this crisis, and what India is doing and why is it doing so. So the article says that India is maintaining a studied silence. Now what this means is that India is silent on the issue where it is not condemning US or China, or neither it is commenting on anything. So the decision not to issue a statement, some officials have said that it is deliberate, as New Delhi seeks to avoid a controversy on a sensitive issue between the US and China, and also given that India, unlike other countries in the region, has not referenced to the One China policy at least 2010. Now what this means is that India is not issuing a statement either in favor of US or in favor of China, because both these players are important for India, US in terms of trade and other aspect, and China in terms of it does not want a controversy with that country, because we already have border tensions going on with China in the Ladakh region. So that is why the silence stand is a carefully decided stand aimed at ensuring India does not wish to cause a controversy with China at a sensitive time at the border talks, and doesn't wish to claim allegiance to the one China policy either. Now, if India does not condemn USA, it would mean that it is accepting China's one China policy. What is China's one China policy? So when the Chinese Revolution happened and the People's Republic of China was established, the dissenters of the government flew to the state of Taiwan, where Mao Zedong was the leader who established a government in China. A prominent leader known as Chiang Kai-shek with his army was disbanded from China, and he, along with his army and other people, fled to this island known as Taiwan. And since then, it has established a separate identity for itself, but China never recognized this country. China claims under this one China policy that there is only one Chinese government and Taiwan is also a part of China. So under this policy, initially India adhered to this policy, right? So India has followed the one China policy since 1949, indicating that it does not recognize any government other than the PRC in Beijing and only conducts trade and cultural ties with Taiwan. This it used to do, but then it suddenly stopped doing after 2008. It stopped mentioning its adherence to one China policy after 2008. What happened after this? What started to happen was that China started intervening in the state of Arunachal Pradesh and started naming the villages of Arunachal Pradesh by giving them Mandarin names, and started to appropriate territory in Arunachal Pradesh as well. So when when India saw that China itself is not adhering to the one India policy, or not respecting India's sovereignty and integrity, why should India do so? So then it stopped mentioning or expressly adhering to the one China policy. So this is the stance now which India is keeping, wherein it does not want to condemn any of the parties, neither it wants to show any support to China in terms of supporting its one China policy. Neighboring countries such as Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar have all given their adherence and recognition to this one China policy, which means that they are with China on the issue of China and Taiwan. But India is maintaining a balance between them and not giving any statement out in favor or against any country. So that was the analysis of how India is reacting to the whole situation. This is a highly volatile and developing situation where more and more events will take place in the coming days. So as and when they happen, we'll keep analyzing them and try to extract information from them from the examination point of view. So from the examination point of view, whenever a question comes on the international world order, how India is reacting to it, what India is doing, becomes a part of understanding for us. So with this, let's move on to our next article for the day. The next article now, which features in the newspaper, reads, "The coal mining protests in the Hasdeo Aranya region." Now this is an important article which features in the newspaper, which talks about the Hasdeo Aranya forest. There are protests going on with respect to these forests. So we'll understand why these protests are going on and what is the whole issue behind this. So this will become important for us from the point of view of GS3, where we study environment. The important geographical region that this issue entails will be important for us from the point of view of geography, and the issues of the tribal people who are residing and protesting in these regions can become a part of GS2 as well. So what is this issue? So Hasdeo Aranya is the name of the forest which exists in the state of Chhattisgarh, right? So this is the Aranya itself means forest. So this is a forest region in the state of Chhattisgarh from which the river Hasdeo passes. This is the river Hasdeo, which is a tributary of river Mahanadi, right? So this is the region of the Hasdeo Aranya region, wherein the river Hasdeo and river Mand as well, which is also a tributary of Mahanadi, passes. So this region is the bone of contention, wherein it is a dense forest where obviously the tribal communities live, but under these forests are also rich coal fields, wherein these coal fields can be mined and coal can be extracted from. So whenever under a forest coal field exists, it automatically becomes a ground of dispute where the state authorities and the mining companies want to extract the coal from it to for industrial use, and that would affect the lives of the tribal people living in the forest, and that is why the forest the tribal people from this Hasdeo Aranya region have come out to protest. So first let's understand about the Hasdeo region, and then we'll understand why exactly are the protesters protesting and what is the state authority doing now. So what has happened right now is that the news context is that Chhattisgarh Legislative Assembly, which is the legislative body of the state, has passed a resolution urging the center to cancel allocation of all coal mining blocks in the ecologically sensitive area of this forest, which means that it has passed a resolution in the Legislative Assembly asking the center to revoke all the allocation of coal mining blocks. Whenever coal mining happens, a certain block of the land is given or leased out to a certain party. Those are known as coal mining blocks, and these are allocated by the government to various private manufacturers or public sector enterprises. So it has passed a resolution asking the center to cancel all of this, and this is a result of the rising protest of the tribals in this particular area. So first let's understand about the forest region. The Hasdeo Aranya region is a sprawling forest in the northern part of Chhattisgarh known for its biodiversity and coal deposits. It falls under Korba, Sujapur and Sarguja district with sizable tribal population. So these are the three districts under which these forest region falls. And the Hasdeo river, which we saw is a tributary of the Mahanadi river, this flows through this forest. And the Hasdeo Aranya is the largest unfragmented forest in central India, consisting of pristine sal trees or the Shoria robust and teak forests. So which means this is the significance of the forest, where it is the most unfragmented forests in the central India region, and that is why it's a big ground for the migratory corridor and has a significant presence of elephants. So when elephants have to travel from one forest to another, it is functioning as a significant migratory corridor for these elephants. So that is the importance of these forests, and with that a sizable tribal population also lives in it. So what is happening? How did this mining activity take place? So as we see the news right now, where the Chhattisgarh government has passed a resolution asking the center to cancel the coal mining, but initially it was this Chhattisgarh government only which had given an affirmation on carrying out the mining. So the Hasdeo Aranya coal field is spread over nearly 18,880 square kilometer and comprises of 23 coal blocks. So there are 23 such coal blocks situated under this forest, and this area was declared as a no-go zone for mining by the center in 2009. So first it was declared as a no-go zone, which would mean that no mining activity will take place over here, but then the demand for mining picked up around 2010 when the Chhattisgarh government recommended forest clearance for diverting forest land from the Parsa East and the Kente Basan PEKB coal fields. These are the name of the coal fields in the forest. So as we see, it was declared as a no-go zone first, then the Chhattisgarh government itself recommended forest clearance for the mining to take place, and then in June 2011, the Forest Advisory Committee of the Environment Ministry recommended against diverting the forest land for mining. So the Forest Advisory Committee, we have seen this committee, it is under the Forest Rights Act. So this committee recommended that such mining should not take place. It recommended against the diverting of forest land, which meant that the central government first denied. But then the central government or the Union Ministry of Environment changed its stance, and the Environment Minister overruled this decision, saying that coal mining will be done in an area away from the dense forest. So we can see that the decision of doing or permitting coal mine kept shifting, where it was first a no-go zone, where Chhattisgarh first asked the mining to be done, then center denied, and then the Environment Ministry itself gave a clearance, and then in 2012, forest clearance was granted by the Ministry of Environment and Forest for mining in phase 1 of these coal mines. So now the center has given since the center gave a clearance, that is when the protests started to happen. And now the Chhattisgarh government is saying that these coal mines or the allocation of these coal mining blocks should be taken back. So what can be the effects of mining, doing mining in such areas? So the adverse effects are quite high. According to studies by the ICFRE and Wildlife Institute of India, mining will affect the biodiversity in the region. Why? Because these two coal mining blocks for conducting mining in these areas, 3 lakh trees are going to be cut down. So when such amount of forests is going to be cut down, we can imagine the adverse effects on the biodiversity that can happen, which would lead to habitat loss and clearing of the forest and aggravate the issue of human-elephant conflicts. When the habitat loss happens for the animals, it increases the man-animal conflict, and this is exactly what will happen. It will have an impact on the community in form of loss of livelihood, identity and culture, as 90% of the households are dependent on agriculture and forest produce. So when the forests will go, the whole substance of existence for these communities will also go away, and it would therefore lead to displacement of these people and further marginalize the Adivasis or tribal people, which is why they are indulging into the protests, and to some extent one can say that they have been successful, where now the Chhattisgarh government has urged the center to cancel the coal mining blocks. But is this supposed to change anything? As per the article, it says that both these governments are fighting amongst each other, where the state government is saying that the center has power to cancel the coal blocks, and the center says that it is the responsibility of the state government to cancel the coal blocks. Experts say that the center does have the power to accept the offers of the coal mining blocks, but the state government has veto power to cancel any such coal mining allocations that can be given to it. So one can say that the ultimate power does rest with the state government, and the infighting between state government and center government should stop to really come to a solution of this issue, right? So this was the discussion with respect to this particular issue of Hasdeo Aranya forest. So what becomes important for is the location of this forest, as we saw which river goes through it, wherein it is situated, and what is the broader issue attached with it. So right, with this, let's move on to our next article for the day. The next article which now appears in the newspaper reads, "Is the declining rupee a crisis or an opportunity?" Now, this is an important article which features in the newspaper and becomes important for us from the GS3 point of view, where we study the important aspects of Indian economy. And the depreciating rupee, which we keep hearing about day in and day out, is one of the biggest talking points in the country right now. So, what do we mean by declining rupee or depreciating rupee? So generally the value of a currency is when international trade is happening, so it is pegged with some other currency. So when we say that the rupee is depreciating or rupee is declining, it is meant that as compared to a foreign currency, the value of rupee is either increasing or decreasing. And which is that foreign currency? We take it as the US dollar. So currently we say that 1 US dollar is equal to 79.80 rupees, which means that in order to buy $1, we would have to spend 79.80. And whenever we say that the rupee is depreciating, which means that whenever this value of rupee increases with respect to this US dollar, it would mean that the value of rupee is depreciating. So let's say, for example, the value of rupee is depreciating. So this would mean that this value is increasing, right? So we can see the difference. The value over here, that is 79.80, will increase, but what we would call it is depreciating of money, depreciating of rupee. Why? Because the value of the rupee that is we have to spend to buy $1, that is increasing, and that is why the value of this rupee is decreasing. That is what we call depreciating rupee. So this is what is happening since a long time now in the Indian economy. And why is this happening? So the authors try to point out various reasons to it. And the most important reason is the global slowdown and the global challenges that have occurred. The Russia-Ukraine war, pandemic, many events before that. All of these international events are a big reason as to why the value of rupee is falling against the dollar. And the other international banks as well in these foreign countries, they are increasing their interest rate, which is what it is doing. That we have covered this before, is that the capital which came to India and other such emerging countries by the way of FDI or FII, the foreign direct investment or foreign institutional investment, these people are pulling the money out of the country. So when the dollar that some company put out in the country, it will pull out or it will take away from the country, will it not decrease the supply of dollars in the country? So this decrease of supply of dollars from the country also results into depreciation of the rupee. So the question of the article is that, is this depreciation of a rupee a good thing or a bad thing? So how can decreasing value of a currency be a good thing as well? So that is the point which the authors try to highlight, is that the value of rupee depreciating or declining against the US dollar, or what we call depreciation of the currency, can be a good thing as well. How can it be a good thing? Because let's say that currently one US dollar is equals to 79.80 rupees. So now which means that in order to buy $1, we would have to spend 79.80 rupees. So when they say that the depreciating rupee has a positive effect, this has a positive effect on the exports that the countries do. So which means that, let's say that a company X from India exports a certain goods of let's say value 1000. It exports goods worth rupees 1000 from India. So now when it will export goods worth rupees 1000 and then it will export it outside the country, will it not get a higher price for the in dollars if this value further decreases, which means that let's say it goes to 81, which means that rupee is depreciating. So when it is depreciating, it is supposed it will get more for the value of the currency that can that is to be supplied by this particular export company, and it will get more amount. So therefore depreciating currency is said to have a positive impact on the exports that a companies or a country makes, and it has a negative impact on the imports that a countries make. So for example, if now India wants to import crude oil from the nations, so it will have to spend dollars to bring this oil from the other foreign countries to India. So while buying this oil, we know that it would have to spend dollars, and since the rupee's value is depreciating, more number of dollars would be needed to be spent. So therefore depreciating rupee has a negative impact on the imports, but it has a positive impact on the exports as well. The exports become competitive. That is why we see a lot of news in the past years where China used to deliberately indulge into depreciating of its currency. The US labeled China as manipulating its currency to make its exports more competitive. So this is the positive and negative impact of rupee depreciation. But the reason for worry in India is that if this rupee depreciation goes on increasing, the inflation in the country might rise, right? Because the dollars are going out, the value is decreasing, and the demand, the capitals which we saw from the way of FDI and FI pulling out from India, the capital outflows are happening, and that is a sign of worry. So which is why the current account deficit is set to increase, and this is what needs to be checked, which means that our exports should increase, our imports should decrease. What we saw in yesterday's session and day before of talking about the trade deficit, where we saw that the trade deficit is increasing. So trade deficit, when we attach the balance of services in it as well, we get the current account deficit, and currently the forex reserves were at a highest point were at 635 billion, and they now are at 510 billion dollars, which means that there has been a decrease in forex reserves, which we saw. The reason for this is that many investors are pulling out from India. So all of these factors need to be checked, and capital inflows need to be increased in order for the stability of the Indian economy. But the global slowdown which is happening can reduce the cost of imports, but decreasing exports is the worrying sign. So what is the most worrying sign in the Indian economy, which is why we are not able to tap the depreciation of rupee, is that our exports are still not getting competitive and they are at a declining rate. So these exports need to rise, and that is why we need to do this in order to check the depreciation of rupee and make advantageous use of it, right? So therefore depreciating currency is not bad, but we need to check on imports when the prices go up, and we need to enhance our exports. So then, with respect to the rupee depreciation now, what is the RBI doing? So whenever rupee depreciation happens or there is a mismatch between the dollars and rupees, the RBI comes into action, and we have seen in the past few months that it has increased the repo rates, which means that it has increased the interest rate on which it lends the banks. Repo rate is that rate on which the RBI lends money to the banks, and that interest rate is known as repo rate. And in the past few weeks, RBI has increased this repo rate. Why has it done so? In order to tame the inflation or decrease the rising inflation in the country. So which means that RBI is targeting the inflation in order to control the supply of dollars and control the supply of rupee in the market. But the experts in the article say that only changing the interest rate, which the Monetary Policy Committee, right? We had seen about this. The Monetary Policy Committee is the apex body of the RBI, which has representations from the governors of RBI as well as nominated members from the central government. So this body takes the decision of increasing or decreasing the interest rates, and this MPC has taken the decision. I think it's today's news as well, where the MPC has taken the decision of increasing the interest rate. But the experts in the article point out that merely changing the interest rate does not much affect the value of rupee. It might check inflation in some level or the other, but let's understand it this way. If we want to decrease the inflation in the economy by increasing the interest rate, it would mean that the banks would take less money from RBI, and credit creation in the economy would decrease to some form or the other. So it would lead to, it would have an impact on the inflation in the country, but it would not have that significant an impact. That is why they're saying that the interest rate changing is not a very foolproof method. On top of that, higher interest rates or high repo rates have an adverse impact on output, which affects the GDP growth. How will it impact the output? Because if the interest rates are high, less people will take loan. If less people will take loan, less credit creation will happen and less economic activity will happen. So therefore, less output, and it will negatively impact the GDP. That is why the act of interest rate changing, which the RBI is doing, the experts point out that there are certain flaws with it, and it is not a very foolproof method. And that's the reason why RBI has predicted a fall in GDP growth in the coming days as well. Therefore, what is needed is greater dependence on the fiscal instrument. So the authors point out that one is the monetary policy. What do we mean by monetary policy? This is the policy which RBI undertakes in order to control the vitals of economy. And what is the fiscal policy? This is the part of the executive or the central government. When the government takes measures to control the vitals of the economy, that is done under the fiscal policy, and when the RBI takes measures, that is under the monetary policy. So the experts point out that apart from the measures on the monetary policy side, certain measures on the fiscal policy side also should be done by the government. And what are those measures? The one measure that the authors point out is about the corporate tax rate. Now we know that since the past few years there have been concessions given in the corporate tax rate, which means that the tax that the big companies are needed to give there have been concessions, and many concessions have been given to them to pay less taxes. The authors point out that such concessions have amounted to rupees 500 lakh crore. If these concessions can be removed, which means that this much revenue the government can earn, and if it can earn this much revenue, it can in turn infuse that in the Indian economy, which would increase the value of rupee and increase the demand in the economy. So this is what the authors point out, that it should be done. What is the status of the depreciation of rupee? What can be done? What is happening, and what can be done in the coming days? So this was the discussion with respect to this particular article. We stop here and we'll meet again tomorrow with the important articles from the newspaper. Thank you.